The car market is broken, like for real. About this time of month, we should be getting a monthly inventory update across all new vehicle manufacturers. The winners, the losers, average day inventory supply, average transaction price, and listing price, all of which are key metrics to help us gauge the overall health of the used and new car market. And it helps us, the consumers, to figure out which car manufacturers are most likely to give us below MSRP pricing and dealership discounts versus which ones probably aren't going to be giving great incentives anytime soon. But this month, we really don't have any of this data, because the car market is broken. Last month, CDK, a wildly, in fact nearly universally used software by dealerships throughout the country, was hacked in what was a ransomware cyber attack. This basically crippled the entire automotive industry, but specifically and especially dealership sales. The losses from dealerships has already surpassed $1 billion. Yes, that is a billion with a B. The outage began on June 19th and wasn't even over until going into the second week of July. And the way that it ended, well, reportedly, CDK paid a whopping $25 million ransom payment. And the fact that this happened at the end of month, end of quarter, you very literally could not ask for a worse time for this type of ransomware cyber attack to occur, which I'm sure was not a coincidence by the cyber attackers. Regardless, this has absolutely impacted dealership inventory, sales, as well as the data that we have access to for videos like this one. But despite the fact that we don't have access to many of the data points that we typically review in these types of videos, here is the data that we do have access to as of today. Total inventory as of July 8th, 2024 was 2.91 million units of inventory. This is up 110% from a year ago and is the largest amount of inventory that we've seen in years. But we still are not at pre-pandemic levels, at least as of right now, because back in 2019, dealership inventory had exceeded 4 million units. And so while we are seeing drastic improvements from 2019 numbers, which is when the car market absolutely imploded, we still aren't at pre-pandemic levels. But it is important to note that even back in 2019, those inventory levels weren't necessarily the norm for the time either. Because back in 2019, whenever dealership inventory exceeded 4 million units, that was a peak for dealership inventory that we've seen in nearly 20 years at the time. So while we technically aren't at pre-pandemic levels today in 2024, we have seen drastic improvements. And in some regards, July of 2019 isn't a great comparison point because of the fact that it was a peak in inventory for the time. Now, this equates to a 116-day supply. This is an absolutely massive amount of inventory and is the largest day supply that we've seen, honestly, probably since I started making these videos. But of all of the data points that we're going to be discussing in this video, truthfully, this is probably the one that is the least reliable given the CDK outages. Because inventory days supply is based off of a rolling 30-day sales pace. To kind of explain this with a comparison, you could have two 30-day periods of time with the exact same amount of inventory. But if one of those 30-day periods of time has more sales volume than the other, even though the technical unit volume of these two periods of time is the same, the day supply is going to be different because the day supply associated with the higher sales volume will be lower than the day supply associated with the lower sales volume. And so while a 116-day supply is absolutely massive and it's the largest day supply that we've seen in an extremely long time, this is a relatively unreliable and, I will admit, somewhat meaningless statistic given the fact that the CDK outage crippled dealership sales. And because of this, the day supply absolutely skyrocketed because it's based off of a 30-day sales pace, which slowed down in the month of June because of the outage. I mentioned the day supply because I do think it is overall an important metric to keep track of, but this month specifically, it means virtually nothing. The average vehicle listing price was $47,384, which was $109 lower from a year ago. But the average vehicle transaction price was $48,644, which was flat month over month. Now, when it comes to specific inventory for specific automakers, we really don't have a lot of data as of now, due to the fact that automakers haven't really been releasing this data because of the cyber attack. But you can see here in this graph from Cox Automotive that vehicle sales decreased as we went further into June. Again, this was due to the cyber attack. And you can see that new vehicle inventory was, at least what I would consider, relatively flat throughout the month. Dealership incentives were down month over month and they were sitting at 6.4%. This means that if you're buying a car today, you can expect to get some sort of incentive, which equates to 6.4% of the average transaction price of that vehicle. And on a $48,644 car, that would equate to about $3,100. Back in May, this was sitting at 6.7%, so we are down a bit from previous months. But this time last year, we were at 4.2%, so we are seeing pretty drastic improvements year over year. Now, when it comes to dealership incentives and vehicle prices, it's really hard to say what type of impact this CDK outage will have long term. And while we certainly don't know the answer to that question and only time will tell, I do think that this CDK outage could potentially incentivize dealerships to discount prices more than they normally would for this time of year, basically trying to make up for the lost sales that they had at the end of June and try to recoup those at the end of July, or potentially even August or September. You could also view it on the flip side of the coin, which I think is going to be the case with some dealerships, where there will be dealerships that don't want to give any discounts because they want to try to make up some of that bottom line that they maybe lost during the end of June whenever this outage was taking place. But regardless, if I was buying a car today, especially as we inch closer to the end of July, I would absolutely try to use this CDK outage to my advantage. And I would absolutely try to negotiate a better price on my car with the idea that these dealerships need to make up sales that they lost over the last month. Now, as far as vehicle affordability goes, things have gotten a tad better. While interest rates are still high, and unfortunately it doesn't look as though this is going to improve dramatically this year, if at all, the average auto loan rate did fall to 9.83%, which is the lowest that we've seen in a year. But the average monthly car payment increased by 0.6% to $756, which is still extremely high, but is technically down from the peak of December of 2022, where car payments were at $795 per month. You can see the Cox Automotive Vehicle Affordability Index here, and while vehicle affordability is in large part flat, it is technically down year over year. Now remember, what is currently impacting vehicle affordability more than any other metric out there are really two key things. Number one is just overall vehicle prices, which while they are going down, they still are incredibly high. And secondly is high interest rates, which are staying high despite the fact that they've been high for what feels like forever now. This is why, despite the fact that car prices have gone down, monthly car payments really haven't gone down by much. Because even though car prices are down, interest rates are still incredibly high, and as a result, this is impacting the overall car payment. Now, the consensus here is that at least from an inventory perspective, it is safe to assume that not much has changed from this update today from my previous update last month. Honda, Toyota, and Lexus are most likely still the bottom three inventory vehicles, while Stellantis and Lincoln are probably the highest inventory automakers. But assumption aside, one thing that we do know in this current car market is that whether you're buying a car this month, next month, or later this year, do not under any circumstances settle for above MSRP pricing. Negotiate hard and try to use the CDK fiasco to your advantage. I will continue to update you all as we get new inventory data because possibly automakers will release their data towards the end of the month, and if that happens, I will make an update video. But if not, I absolutely will make my standard update next month in August, and hopefully by then we can have some more reliable data. And we can get some more insight into how this outage has affected the car market as a whole, and how car prices and inventory levels are trending for this summer. Like always, you guys, I hope that you enjoyed this video. If you have any questions, comments, if you have anything to add, I would love to hear it, so make sure to leave a comment down below, and while you guys are at it, make sure to hit the like button, hit that subscribe button, and hit the notification bell, and I will see you guys in the next video.